Today on the newscast, we head to Iraq to visit one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Plus, we learn the fascinating biblical history of one of the most ancient peoples of the Middle East. That's next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. On yesterday's newscast, we told you about a very important, even historic meeting that took place last Friday in Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan. Some 300 Iraqi leaders from across the sectarian divide, Sunni, Shia, and Kurdish, all gathered in Erbil, and they called for normalization with Israel. They called for Iraq to join the Abraham Accords peace agreement with the Jewish state. Talk about a bold and courageous move. And again, from across Iraq and across the sectarian divide, to me, a historic moment in many ways, folks. Of course, the Iraqi federal government in Baghdad did not like this meeting one bit. There are threats to arrest those involved, and who knows how the Iranian regime will react, which is the real power broker in Iraq right now. So again, talk about courage among these 300 Iraqis to put their necks on the line and call for peace with Israel. One of them even wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal last week. So we're keeping a very close eye on this. To see Iraq join the Abraham Accords would be a massive game changer, to say the least. I don't see it happening, sadly, in the short term, due in particular to Iranian influence in that country. But we can see at least some stirrings of calls for normalization with Israel in that country right now. Again, Sunni, Shia, Kurds all agreeing on this. A small number, 300 overall, but it is something. You have to start somewhere. And the ideal place to start this call is Erbil. It's the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan in northern Iraq. One of the toughest neighborhoods in the Middle East, bordering Syria, Turkey, and Iran, not to mention issues with the Iraqi central government in Baghdad. Now, the Kurds have been loyal allies of the United States for decades, also very friendly to Israel, a rarity, of course, in the heart of the Muslim Middle East. The Kurds have fought against communism, Saddam Hussein, ISIS. Now they are contending with those Iranian-backed Iraqi Shia militias. Again, a very tough neighborhood, but this is an ancient and proud people. And guess what? They have a fascinating biblical history. I paid a visit to Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, a little while back. It is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Our good friend Dalton Thomas of Frontier Alliance International was our host as we walked through the ancient citadel of Erbil and learned what the Bible says about the Kurds. Take a look. Talk more about the geopolitical strategic situation here and why the Kurds are such an invaluable ally for the United States right here in the heart of the Middle East. But we have to mention where we are right now. Yeah. This is a fascinating place. Set the scene for us.
So right now we're in the old city, the Citadel, right in the heart of Erbil. Now the crazy thing about this place is, as you can see, it looks pretty old.
And it is pretty old.
It's not just pretty old. This is the oldest inhabitable city in the world. Meaning there's no other city that some come close like Damascus, but there's no other city in the world that there's a record of a population living inside of this city longer than this one right here that we're walking in right here.
And again, folks, this is Erbil. This is the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, but it's an amazing place, and you see the visuals there of the overlook here from the Citadel. And this has become a real tourist hotspot, and we see Kurds everywhere taking selfies. Pretty cool to see.
The crazy thing about Erbil, this is what's crazy. People go, oh, you probably heard this when you were getting on a plane to come here, saying, oh, you're going to Iraq, it's so dangerous. Erbil, this is one of the top 5 safest cities in the world.
Wait, please repeat that for us.
Erbil, we're walking right now, which is in Iraq, technically. is classified in terms of statistically one of the 5 most safest cities in the world in terms of statistics.
Wow.
Which is mind-blowing when you think the neighborhood that we're in. But I can attest to it. Living here, raising kids here, this is, think about it. A U.S. service member, or even an Israeli service member, could walk the streets of this place and people will come out of the shops, shake your hand and say thank you.
Yes.
They'll hug you, they'll kiss you. They love the United States. They love Israel. Yeah. It's a Muslim country.
The U.S.-Kurdish relationship, the cooperation against ISIS, and we're going to talk about that more coming up, but the cooperation against ISIS, against Saddam Hussein, take it back about 25 years, the Kurds have been a steadfast and loyal ally of the United States for many, many years.
This is the bottom line. Kurdistan is the Iraq that we dreamed of in 2003. When we deposed Saddam Hussein, we had this vision of religious liberty that was all of these things. And you go down and you look at Iraq today, Iraq is none of those things. Iraq today is Iran. Kurdistan is everything that we fought and bled and died and believed in 2003.
Yeah, take us through the history of this proud people a little bit that goes back thousands of years here in the region and that also has a biblical connection.
Profound biblical connection. And the question is, where do you start? There's so much, but let's take Assyrian and Babylonian invasion. The Jewish people are, their lands invaded and violated and they're deported. Where are they deported to? Here. So the indigenous people of this land became the custodians in many ways of Jewish presence in their midst. And you can meet Kurds today who will talk about before 1948 how there was still Jewish presence here and how they believed it was their responsibility to care for the Jews who were still in exile in their midst, who then went back in 1948. Now think of that. What other country in the Middle East thinks and talks that way?
Yeah, who's actually has fond reminiscences of the Jewish presence here and would like to see it return.
And I think it's because God's hand is on this people in a profound way. This is profound. We talk about the wise men who came, when Jesus was born in Bethlehem. But where did the wise men come from? They came from here. And if you talk to the Kurds today, the Kurds just assume it. It's just, the wise men, they were Kurds. So think about this. Potentially, the first people to acknowledge the divinity of baby Jesus in Bethlehem who traveled to the land of Israel were more than likely Kurds. Now, go to Pentecost, Acts 2. There's a list in Acts 2. It says that all of these peoples gathered in Jerusalem for the Feast of Pentecost. They gathered there, and who's the first people mentioned but the biblical term for the Kurds? So the Kurds are the first people to recognize the divinity of baby Jesus, and they're also the first people mentioned in the book of Acts who were present at a Jewish feast in Jerusalem on Pentecost after Jesus was crucified and rose from the dead. And I think the Kurds have a history and a destiny of being at the forefront of God's purposes. And I think that's what we're on the cusp of now, is another season of the Kurds being harbingers of God's providential purposes in the Middle East.
Yeah, there's clearly something stirring here, and it's a proud people that, has been oppressed. They can share that with the Jewish people as well. There's been a history of oppression and tyranny against the Kurdish people here in the region.
Yeah.
But like Israel in many ways, the Kurdish people are standing strong. Yeah. They're here today. They're thriving through Saddam, through ISIS, go back to ancient oppressors thousands of years ago, yet the Kurds are still here. And I think it tells you something, Dalton, about the character and the spirit of the people, that they are so close to America, that they do have such a fond view of Israel.
Interestingly, the Arabs call the Kurds the other Jews, and they call Kurdistan the other Israel.
Now, they mean it in a derogatory way, but for us, we consider that a compliment, I would say.
Totally. And now, the thing is, those of us who stand with and love the state of Israel and the Jewish people, I believe there's no better way over the next decade to show our love and solidarity with the Jewish people in the state of Israel than standing with this people and this pre-state that's not yet a state that I believe deserves to be a state. Yeah. And you can see it. It's coming alive. And this is a place that deserves our support.
Yeah. We talk a lot here on the show about Israel being the front line of defense for the West, but the Kurdish people are the front lines of that front line here in the belly of the beast in the Middle East. But hey, we're going to be talking a lot about what's going on here today. And as people can see, it's bustling, it's alive here in Iraqi Kurdistan. We'll talk more about the past and we'll talk about the future of this incredible people and this incredible region with you. Folks, as you can see, Erbil is a fascinating place, and it was a real eye-opener for me to learn about the biblical history of the Kurdish people from our good friend Dalton Thomas. Again, check him out at Frontier Alliance International. They are doing very important work. Hey, if you like that segment with Dalton from Erbil, watch our entire episode filmed in that city. It's episode 153 of the Watchman TV show. Just go to our archives here on the YouTube channel under full TV episodes, episode 153, and you can watch the entire show. Remember, if you love the Watchman Newscast here on YouTube every Monday through Friday, you will love our weekly TV show on TBN, 30 minutes of the Watchman each week on the ground around the world in places like Erbil, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays and 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays. Check it out. Hey, thanks so much for joining us here today on the Watchman Newscast. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.